Hello, this one is Thongor of Lemuria by Lin Carter. So let's have a quick look at this rather pretty little book. It is a smaller size than normal. Where's a normal size paperback? Okay, normal size paperback, Thongor of Lemuria. As you can see, I don't know what you'd call this size. I'm sure there's people out there that do, but it's smaller than your regular, and I think it's an original. So it says that it is from 1966, which I believe was the first publishing of this. It's kind of cute. It's got no ISBN. It's got this rather nice little spine. It's obviously been read, but it hasn't been read through the roof. It's got a hand-drawn map by Lin Carter. Isn't it cute? Remember when we thought that we were so cool when we were drawing fantasy maps by running the pen up and down in sharp, jagged points like that? And on the first chapter, you've got a sword and a dragon. That's the only chapter that's illustrated, and I guess that's a clear indication that this is a tribute to your sword and sorcery, which I believe that Lin Carter is generally thought to be all about. So he's meant to be very heavily inspired by Robert E. Howard, Edgar Rice Burroughs. So Thongor is created with lashings of Tarzan and themes such as Conan the Barbarian. I did read somewhere online that Thongor was a series. This is number 2. I don't have number 1. It's okay, you can read number 2 without number 1. You can read number 2 without anything except the sense of humour, to be honest. But apparently at some stage, L'Esprit de Camp? I don't know, someone approached Lin Carter to continue the Conan series, and after that he kind of lost interest in Thongor. I can see why. I imagine that writing Thongor could get a bit repetitious. And while I believe that Lin Carter was trying to recreate that classic pulp era publishing, I don't believe Thongor was ever actually published in magazines as a serial. I think it was published as a book. Tell me if I'm wrong by all means. I'm often wrong. So, beautiful book. Love that cover. I love the whole style of writing, the legend of lost Lemuria, where now the blue Pacific rolls 1,000 miles without a break. There was once, in the dawn of the world, a mighty continent, thronged with glittering cities of marble and gold. It was a land of magic and terror, of untamed jungles, where swarmed the thunder dragons of Earth's first days. So basically what this is meant to be, Lemuria is meant to be the Lemuria that existed, was before side of Gondwana land. It's just a fantasy land, really. No different from John Carter of Mars Land, really. Barsoom? It was Barsoom, wasn't it? Okay, so overall this book is pretty naff. It's a perfect example of those manly adventure trends of Tarzan, Robert E. Howard, etc. that we've already mentioned. The male lead is always impossibly heroic, amazingly stoic, incredibly underclad, considering what he's getting up to, muscular and thewed. They always seem to be thewed. They have thews as well as muscles. Not just muscles or thews, sorry, but both. Okay, this classic prototype male is a magnet for any attractive young woman around, especially if she happens to be a princess, preferably a kidnapped princess, and usually garbed in less to nothing except a few exquisitely and strategically placed jewels. So it's a genre I kind of love, and I have to be in the mood for it, mind you. I can't be in the mood for actual characters or anything like that, but when I'm in the mood, I can acknowledge the utter ridiculousness of the story and the writing style, acknowledge how terribly it is dated. Truly, it's published in 1966. I recently read The Green Millennium. That was from the 50s. It hasn't dated as poorly as this, but I'm not sure this was ever meant to be anything except what it is. So I don't know that you can really argue that it's dated worse than things 100 years ago. I just don't think it's from an era where dating was a thing they were worrying about. It certainly makes no attempt of any form of realism in any shape or form. So we start with Thongor the Mighty Feud, Princess Sumia of the Naked Shoulders, and Calm Carbus, all these words, an exiled noble who's their mate. They are all in an airship constructed from lighter than air metal or something like that, and they're trying to get back to the exiled princess's city, which I can't pronounce nor remember. A storm derails this plan, sending this floating metallic vessel out over the sea, and they end up in the ocean fighting a sea serpent called a laugh. Now, one thing you have to be prepared for is, I don't think you're going to be able to say any of these words in your head. Every animal is a gazelle-like gobbledygook or a jaguar-like kablumpf. It's like, these aren't words. These are collections of letters that are not meant to make sense to anyone, but I'm reading it inside my head. My head can deal with that. I don't know how an audiobook would. But okay, back to the sea serpent called the Laugh. We're on page 10. Its black eyes blazed with the fury of hunger. So vast was the dragon-like body of this marine monster that its entire life was one unending quest for food to fill that screaming gulf of hunger. Unlike, and most animals. Whatever. So the writing is charming in its way and terrible in every other way. The actual language is very literary and rather over the top. But while it's often described in scholarly articles, of which I tried to read a couple, about writings from this era, it's described as being basic and descriptive. I don't know how basic it comes across as in 2024. In actual fact, an equivalent book of a similar style of pulp today would probably have a vocabulary of about 500 words if you're basing the young adult of today on analysis of various soapies that I read once. It estimated that the entire Neighbours episodes, casts, seasons, whatever, never used more than 500 words in total. This book seems to cram 500 words onto every single page. It's really quite marvellous. They don't always mean quite what they normally mean, and they don't always, I think, perhaps indicate what the author thinks he's indicating, but they're there. So there's words. Lots of words. Okay, Princess Sumia, one of our three companions who start on the floating ship, right? She's endemic to the genre, and I am not complaining about the treatment of females in this book. Well, there's only one treatment of female in this book, or females in general in the sword and sorcery genre, boys' adventures of this kind. It is what it is, and you either can bear with it and find it funny, or the genre just isn't for you. And there's times, like I said, when I'm not in the mood for it, but when I am, it's fun. You have to be able to laugh at it. So Sumia seems to split her time evenly between quivering with fear over, everything in the world, in the arms of Thongor, or the author trying to convince us that merely a thin veneer of civilization lies under her basic uncivilized past, and then she heads off into the great beyond to move the plot forward by doing something utterly idiotic. Those are Sumia's main purposes in this novel. And she's got this mysterious habit of falling asleep all the time. It's like sleeping after she's been terrified seems to be this chick's natural state of being. She falls asleep in a crashing air vehicle. She falls asleep in a drifting boat that's being carried along in a storm. She falls asleep while a captive of beastmen who want to dine off her succulent flesh later that evening. She sleeps while her love, Thongor, is imprisoned in the dungeons of the sleep, in the dungeons of a city I can't pronounce. Seriously, this princess can sleep through anything. Never mind the princess who couldn't sleep because there was a pea under her mattress. This princess could sleep while there was earth-moving machinery in the room. And if there was any chance that Lin Carter actually based her on a real woman, which is very doubtful, I would suggest that real woman urgently needed to get her hormone levels and thyroid levels checked, because of this level of sleeping, it just ain't natural. And I actually found her intensely entertaining in that very specific way that you can find this kind of pulp entertaining. It's not for everyone. I loved it. So you do have to put a few brain cells on hold to enjoy itself. It contradicts itself very, very often. For example, I'm going to give you page 58, which I bookmarked here for us earlier. Oh yes, this is marvelous. They moved swiftly but silently, keeping close to each other, and each keeping a length of naked steel in their hand. This is Thongor, of course, not Sumia. Yes, a length of naked steel in his hand. Thongor was puzzled by old Termis's words and questioned him as they moved through the darkness silently. Dude, one or the other, one or the other. Either they moved through the darkness silently, or they had this happy little chat about how old turmeric came to be there in the first place. One or the other. So there's a lot of that sort of self-contradiction, which is, again, quite entertaining. And what other interesting little bookmarks have I added here? There's just so much that could be read out, and much of it is enjoyable. All of it is florid. I really don't know what else to say about it. I do want to read more of them. I find that I kind of like this tiny little ace book. Oh, look at this. I don't know what that F number F383 up in the corner. I guess that's something before SBNs. But isn't it cute that this costs 40 cents? 40 cents isn't even a number of currency anymore. It's wonderful. Anyway, so yes, Thongor and his mates have this adventure, and once they get to the shore in this floating ship that used to be able to fly but now it can't, they encounter the beastmen who want to eat Princess Sumia's succulent flesh and any other flesh they can get their hold on. From then they're rescued by some other guys, but unfortunately they've already fallen foul with those, so they end up in a dungeon where Thongor is going to be tortured. Only his mate Turmeric comes to rescue him, and then they are carried on a river to another place where they end up in prison again. And meanwhile, Princess Sumia and the K guy whose name I can't pronounce are having another adventure, and they all end up in the end with Thongor as the overall king of Princess what's her name's Sumia's city, because she loves him, so she gives him everything. Yeah, you know. And then he makes his mates the kings, or sarks if you will, of the other countries because he's killed off the other one. It's marvellous. And it ends on a high note with all of them having lots of wedding feasts. And one of the protagonists, I think it's Kumaris, promising Turmeric that there's going to be plenty more of adventures because Thongor isn't one to just hang around and not do anything. I would really like to read some of those other adventures, to be honest. I did have a huge amount of fun with this one. A very specific kind of fun that you have to be in the mood for, but I had a great time. It was perfect. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope I find more Thongor of Lemuria. I've already found a bit more Lin Carter. Read good books. Only read this particular kind of good book if you're in the mood for pulp fiction that is hysterically funny in its own right. Yeah. Thanks for watching once again. Have a great day. Read those good books.